This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz podcast.
A tweeter writes in, Stugotz, baseball fans should tune in to the Le Batard Show YouTube feed ASAP. David Samson giving an incredibly honest and detailed insight into things teams do to gain competitive edges. I'll give it a listen, someone else write, when it goes on to Apple Podcasts later today. Absolutely love that they have him on weekly. Dude is a dick, but no one really gives more honest insight into the game than he does.
You don't have to be a dick about it.
You don't hear that. And I know many of you object all the time to David Samson being on with us, and too bad. Because if we weren't listening before to what people were telling us, we're certainly not going to do it now.
They've been saying that forever, Dan.
I just don't care. I really don't. I don't know how else to tell you. I'm here to make the content, and he makes the making of content easy. Basketball did that yesterday for us, Stugotz, because this is some of the stuff. It's not all of it. Some of the stuff that happened yesterday. And if you didn't watch the late game yesterday, we're about to take our gaze away from playoff P, Paul George, and focus it on Ben Simmons now as we move into guys who don't show up when you need them to show up. But Scott Brooks, it leaves the Wizards. Stan Van Gundy, our friend, it looks like he's going to end up back here at some point because very short run with the Pelicans. Donnie Nelson out with the Mavericks. Luka is holding a press conference today and is said to be mad about Donnie Nelson being out. Kawhi Leonard out, ACL. Chris Paul, positive COVID test. Mike Conley missing game 5, hamstring. Kyrie Irving out game 6 because of an ankle. But I think today is about laughing at the Sixers, is it not? I cannot believe that they lost that basketball game at home. It's not just that they had a 24 or 26-point lead. It's that they had a 14-point lead with 6 minutes left at home, Stugotz. They got nothing in the second half, nothing from anyone other than the lesser Curry brother and Embiid. Not a single basket from anybody. And I wonder, Amin Elhassan with us here, as the stat line of Ben Simmons looks like the stat line of Furkan Korkmaz, are you ready to declare now? I mean, like, Simmons isn't actually a superstar. He's not a superstar, period.
I'm not going to go that far. I'm going to say that he's a guy with flaws, and unfortunately for him, in the last couple of games, the flaws have been accentuated and the strengths have been weakened. And I think that's the chess game of playoff basketball. Is you got to figure out, how do I get into my comfort zone, and then how do I take you out of your comfort zone? In the first 3 or 4 games of this series, Trae Young looked out of his comfort zone. They kind of stymied him and threw all sorts of traps and stuff like that, and he didn't look great. And now towards the end of the series, now he's kind of taking control, and now everyone's kind of back on the Trae Young bandwagon. Similarly, Ben Simmons was doing a great job defensively. Ostensibly, that was what was making Philly so successful early, was their ability to neutralize Trae Young. And, you know, the adjustments have been made, and he's not as strong at that. And they've accentuated the whole hack of Ben Simmons thing. So I don't think this means, oh, see, I told you he wasn't good. It does mean that there's some playoff chess match happening here that Nate McMillan is winning.
But, I mean, we all know he's good defensively. To be a primary ball handler, a number 1 pick in the draft, and not be able to shoot foul shots or 3-pointers. That's an indictment, man.
What his stat line yesterday in terms of just being someone who evaporated. It's not just the 4 for 14 from the line. It's what did he had a dunk and a layup. He's wandering around out there, and the only shots he can make is a shot any one of us could make.
Right. Well, I mean, I think there's a couple of things. First of all, are we putting him in a position to be successful? To me, it's the same conversation we have about Giannis. If we're afraid of him getting fouled 23 feet from the basket, let's have him catch the ball 3 feet from the basket. Let's find ways to get him involved around the paint. Let's take advantage of his size. He's 6'10", and he's built like a brick house. Why are we like so devoted to, no, he's a point guard. He's got to bring it up like he's Steve Nash or Steph Curry or someone like that. To me, it goes back to, are we using him in the most effective version of himself? I don't think we are. I don't think the Sixers are. And I think that's accentuating the things he can't do. It's no different than if we had Shaq, right? We all call Shaq the most dominant player, and, oh, my God, he's unstoppable. He's one of the greatest players. But if the way the Lakers used Shaq was to give him the ball 23 feet in the basket and say, make your way to where you're a good scorer, he would look really, really pedestrian. And we kill him for that. Instead of saying, well, wait a second. Why does he have the ball right there? Why can't we get him the ball somewhere where he's more impactful?
In fairness to Ben Simmons, Dan, in that second, they needed someone to step up, anyone to step up, because it wasn't going to be Ben Simmons. Tobias Harris was really bad last night as well. Yeah.
Okay, fine, but trust the process wasn't about Tobias Harris.
You're right.
Trust the process was about Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid. Can those two guys be better than everyone when you go up against another team that also has superstars? And StatMuse gave out the stat because, I mean, I don't want to be prisoner of the moment, but the Sixers didn't make a shot for more than 6 minutes down the stretch. They blew a 26-point lead and had a 99.1% win probability. You just don't see that from a one seed at home, ever.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bad loss. I mean, nobody's going to say, oh, well, actually, this happened and that happened. No, they played bad. Two guys scored in the entire second half for them. By the way, Curry scoring a lot of that stuff. So, I mean, it was an all-round failure. Look, the memes are going to fly. The jokes should fly. We should be mocking them. We should be making fun of them. We should be making fun of Ben Simmons and Doc Rivers and Embiid and all of them because they earned it with that performance last night. But I'm not ready to do the Skip Bayless jump up. And because this just happened, it means it invalidates everything else we know about these people.
But so you are kind of being, cool-headed about this, but I just get the feeling that, like, Ben Simmons is one of the two best players on a team that wants to win the championship. He's got too many flaws in his game for that to happen at this point. And also, like, if you're playing with Simmons, that's one less spacer on the floor, and that takes room away from Embiid. So if he's going to be in the dunker spot where, Joel Embiid can work, like, I'm not sure this is a combination that can work. Now, they can still come back and win the series, and given how bad Milwaukee has been, how injured Brooklyn is, maybe even get to the finals. But I'm just not sure that this combination can work together long term.
I mean, they had from Embiid the game you need from him on one leg. Capella's got no chance on anything Embiid is doing in the post. They got the Embiid game, and they lost it anyway because they couldn't get anything from anyone else other than Curry.
They got the Curry game. They wasted the Curry game.
They wasted the Curry game, yes, but I think, again, their success should not hinge on did Embiid have the game of a lifetime. And again, I point out, Embiid's second half, 3 of 9. That's your game of a lifetime from Embiid? That's him bringing it in the second half? So the blame is thickly laid across everybody. Doc's got to do a better job of putting his guys in a position to be successful. The guys got to be able to hit open shots. Ben Simmons has to find a way to be aggressive despite being a foul liability out there. And Embiid has to be able to have the stamina to carry through for, the second half of the game. He was great in the first half and in the second half, and we're kind of giving him a pass because literally everyone else was terrible.
That's 2 second halves, right? Because he was 0 for 12 in the second half before this one. Let's spin the wheel of issues here for Amin. Here's what's on the wheel of issues. It's Stan Van Gundy, it's Scott Brooks, it's Luka, it's Donnie Nelson, it's all of these injuries, It's Paul George last night, and we just did the Sixers. I hope it doesn't land on that. Go ahead and spin, just from yesterday, the NBA Wheel of Issues. I mean, you have your glasses on. Can you see what it landed on there?
It's a little foggy. I should clear it up. Can you guys pick? I can't see.
Not pick. It's
Sixers.
It's been picked. Sixers. God damn it.
Sixers.
Damn.
Oh.
What are the odds?
I could stay with the Sixers. I mean, I'm fine with that.
It's not for you, though. It's for Amin. I don't care about
spin it again.
I don't care about your thoughts on the Sixers.
He's passing. Thanks.
Jesus, Sixers again. I can't believe it. Go ahead, Amin. Give us some extraneous. I feel like we've beaten the Sixers to death, but this is the thing to laugh about today. How about our friend Pablo saying, this is pathetic. The Hawks fouling Ben Simmons on purpose down 20. Like, today is the day to laugh at Pablo, is it not?
It's all Pablo's fault. I truly believe Sam Hinkie would still be employed today if he didn't know Pablo Torre, if he didn't talk to Pablo Torre. Pablo Torre wrote that article.
Guillermo, put it on the poll. Would Sam Hinkie still be employed as the Sixers GM today if he didn't know Pablo Torre?
Pablo wrote that cover story on ESPN, the magazine, and that's when everything changed. They had a nice little quiet experiment. Nobody was paying attention. They're like, oh, the Sixers are bad, but they're rebuilding. And then Pablo writes all about the process and trust the process and all that. And that becomes such a polarizing thing in basketball about the Sixers uber tanking. And as a result, it puts all this undue spotlight and pressure on what's happening. And they're not good yet. And they're not good yet. And this is bad for basketball. And Sam Hinkie's out of a job. But Pablo, he rides high, right? He rides on that wave of stardom. He gets ESPN The Daily and his own TV show. And he's on Around the Horn. Life's good for Pablo.
I also love the idea that we just don't understand Ben Simmons shooting 4 of 14 from the free throw line. Like there's some great mystery to Ben Simmons as we're watching him play one of the worst playoff games a star has ever played.
The thing that can be said for Ben Simmons, and I think this is still statistically accurate, I mean, that no one creates more threes for his team than Ben Simmons does. That one of the reasons that the Sixers are good is because they have shooters, and one of the reasons those shooters are good is because Ben Simmons creates. But I do believe we've shifted. What does Paul George have to do for us to shift from Paul George can't do it in playoff games? He just won an enormous one on the road.
Yep.
While Ben Simmons is coughing up something as the number 2 guy, that's a 26-point lead with a 99.1% win probability at home.
Stugotz, what does Paul George have to do in order to shift the stuff off of him?
He's got to do it in the next game, I mean.
Yes, do it again.
There you go.
It's always do it again. Yes, and keep doing it again. After he does it in Game 7 of the finals to win the trophy, he's got to do it the next day during the parade.
Back to back. Yeah.
Yes.
You got to repeat. He's got to repeat after that. You win a championship, win another one.
I mean, what do you say to the people who think Doc Rivers has to take Ben Simmons out in that spot? That he has to because they're fouling. They're hacking Ben Simmons. What do you say to them?
So my thing is this, and again, we went through this when we had Shaq in Phoenix. We told them, look, every time they foul you, 2 things are happening. 1, there's another guy on their team who's going to get in foul trouble sooner. 2, our team is going to be in the bonus a lot sooner. We're shooting free throws with the 8-minute mark, which means what? It means that if Steve Nash is bringing the ball up 50 feet away from the basket and the guy checking him gets a little aggressive, that's 2 free throws for the greatest free throw shooter of all time. If Amari Stoudemire catches the ball and rips through 20 feet from the basket on his way to the basket, that's free throws for him. And so we were encouraging him, get fouled 20, 30 times. Let's keep doing this. Let's keep building the offense. I don't know if Ben Simmons is getting that kind of messaging. And then the other thing is, once we're in the penalty, now we can sit him. And now we can start to take advantage of their inability to defend us without fouling. But I don't understand the idea of just letting him get out there and have his confidence shot and then not taking advantage of it anywhere else on the floor.
Spin that wheel again for me, Whittingham.
Well, no, it says spin again.
It's the Sixers again. God, I thought it was going to be the. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. We need it. Again?
Mavs.
What are the
odds? It says Mavs.
No, your glasses are no good. But I want to hear about the Mavs anyway. Go ahead and give us what you've got on the Mavs because Donnie Nelson being fired. So The Athletic comes out with this article, and Mark Cuban calls it bullshit. And it's about Bob Voulgaris' shadow GM increasing power, friction with Luka. Now there's going to be a press conference with Luka today, and he hasn't signed an extension. What do you think is going to happen there?
I think he's going to sign an extension. Nobody in the history of basketball has turned down the rookie scale extension when it's at the max level. In the case of Luka, it's going to be one level higher than the regular max for someone of his experience. He's going to get the Rose Rule max, which is $200 million roughly over 5 years. Yeah, he's not turning that down, guys. I'm sorry. It's never happened. It's not going to start now. But there is some serious damage control that needs to happen within the Dallas Mavericks organization. I think what the article hinted at was a friction not between Luka and Bob Voulgaris, as I said in my essay yesterday, but more about a friction inside that front office. And they've got to figure all that out because that dysfunction does seep down to where the players are, and it does impact how the team does.
Doesn't Donnie Nelson being out validate that report?
I mean, look, the thing that I know about that report is that somebody inside the Mavs spoke. That's what we knew. Whether what they said was factual or not, right? For instance, there's a part in there where they talk about Bob got up towards the end of a game and went to the end of a loss, and everyone was miffed about that, like this guy just quit on the game. But the reality is, Bob, as there are many staffers on many teams in this league, goes in before halftime and before the end of the game because they got to get the info ready for the team when they come back in the locker room. I know this as a video coordinator. I did this too. I had to go inside because you got to get the stuff ready so that when the team comes in, we've got our video ready, we've got our talking points ready, whatever. That wasn't a we are about to lose this game thing. That was a I got to go get my job done. And so the idea that that would be construed as Bob quit on the team or whatever tells you this is coming from inside and this is coming from someone who has an agenda.
Donnie Nelson had been there how long? A quarter century?
25 years or so, yep.
So what does it mean? It means that it's no longer Bob Voulgaris shadow GM, correct? It means Bob Voulgaris is the power broker there now.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no, because I think there is more to the job than just, hey, we should get this player, and hey, these are the lineups we should run, which is ostensibly what a lot of Bob's job is lineup kind of validation and trying to figure out what the best possible combinations are, the substitution patterns and all that, and also, player evaluation. Negotiation is a different task, right? We talk about GM. One of the biggest things is my ability to negotiate with agents, my ability to negotiate with other teams, most importantly, my ability to negotiate with my owner to make sure that the things that we want are the things that we get and the things that we're not so crazy about, we keep them away. That's the GM's job. And so while I've know Bob and I think he's great at talent evaluation, I don't know about his negotiation skills. I don't know about his interpersonal skills from a leadership standpoint.
Well, no, you said he could be an asshole. You do know about his interpersonal skills. You said flatly that he can be an asshole.
Yeah, but and also I've never met Bob, the leader of an organization. Maybe there's a change that happens to him when he realizes the actual mantle of leadership is upon me, and now I have to behave in a different way. Maybe he's just being an asshole, kind of the way that I'm an asshole. I don't have to. No one answers to me, so I don't have to worry about hurting anybody's feelings. But the reality is, once you're in an organization you're rising up, that becomes more and more important.
But I mean, stuff like rotations and lineups and combinations, shouldn't that be Rick Carlisle's job?
Well, the idea is that he's providing information that helps Rick do his job better. And that's all, in a perfect world, that's all any of us want. We want someone who's going to be the decision maker, and then we want everybody else to be supplying information for the decision maker to use to make better decisions. I don't think it's Bob's way or the highway, but I do think Rick is on board with the suggestions that Bob makes.
Stugotz here for our friends over at DraftKings. I love DraftKings. I spend all my time there, seriously. I have my mail sent there. I do. People say, hey, what's your address? My address is DraftKings.com. DraftKings Sportsbook is not only my favorite sportsbook, but also America's top-rated sportsbook. I love using DraftKings Sportsbook. It is easy to navigate, has plenty of instructions for new bettors, and nearly limitless ways to get in on all the action. My friends and family have been loving DraftKings Sportsbook, and I know you will too. Listen to this great offer. DraftKings Sportsbook is putting you courtside with a chance to turn $1 into $100 in site credits. That's right. Pick any basketball team that is still in contention. Bet $1, and if that team wins, you win $100 in site credits. How about that? DraftKings, man, they're always getting it done for our audience. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code Dan when you sign up to turn $1 into $100 in free credits. Bet on the basketball team of your choice to win their next game, and if they do, you will claim $100 in free credits. That's promo code Dan for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Wager paid out in site credits. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or, in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT.
The most significant injuries from all of them are?
Oh, man. Kawhi Leonard. Because indefinitely, and the rumble is perhaps out for the rest of the playoffs with this ACL sprain, ACL partial tear, however they're classifying it. And so the Clippers truly don't have a chance. I mean, they might win this series, but they're not going to get much further. With regard to Chris Paul's COVID protocol, I don't know, we count it as an injury?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I mean, the deal is, allegedly he is vaccinated, which doesn't mean you can't be in protocol, but it does mean you can get out of protocol sooner. And so if you're the Suns, you're rooting for a Game 7 in that other series, because the more you delay it, the more time Chris Paul has to come back. And so I expect him to be back, unless he actually has COVID. I expect him to be back in time for the start of the series. So I'm not as concerned about that one. The Danny Green one, maybe that one was a big one for them, given how they shot last night. And then finally, Kyrie Irving. I think if Harden's healthy, then Brooklyn's all right with Harden and Durant. I think if Harden is not healthy and he's just been kind of faking it out there, then that probably puts a huge lid on Brooklyn's chances.
Mike Conley is the one that kind of gets left out in this discussion, because it happened like early on in the playoffs, and so everyone forgets that. I mean, Utah is not able to come back against the Clippers, at least in part because Donovan Mitchell, who himself is hurt, is probably doing too much because there's no Conley.
Yeah, yes and no, Woody, because Conley at least has a chance of coming back. He's got a chance to come back. And Donovan Mitchell, I would say, is probably the more important injury, because you talked about it last night, his lack of explosiveness. He can't, get separation, and that's impacting. We saw in the second half of that game down the stretch where he just dribbles up and takes a three-pointer. Now, the Jazz offense is all about dribble, drive, penetration, the ball moving around and everything, and all of a sudden we're just getting one guy, dribble it up, take a three-pointer, and then run back, and that's not what's successful for them. So I would say Donovan Mitchell's injury, despite him actually playing and being on the floor, is more devastating to them than Mike Conley's absence.
Reggie Jackson. What the hell?
Ooh, yeah. Mr. October.
Yeah, Mr. June. Yeah.
Mr. June.
Stan Van Gundy's watching that after giving him a max deal and being like,
It just goes to show, though, it's all about where you put people. You put people in a position to be successful. So in the case of Reggie Jackson in Detroit, they were asking too much of him. He's not good enough to do that every single night. But if you ask him to do it twice in the playoffs, you give him one of those, it was worth it, right? You're celebrating. The expectation is such a funny and fickle thing that if Paul George has that 30-point game in game 5, and everyone's like, oh, Paul George did it, and he did a great job. And I'm like, Kawhi literally had a better stat line across the board. But that's what Kawhi always does. We just kind of all right, that's cool. But Paul George, we put his thing up on the fridge with a magnet right here, so the whole house can see what a great player you've been today, right? So that's why we kind of are derisive towards him, because he's paid like a guy who's supposed to do it every day. But in actuality, he's not the guy who's delivered it every single day in the playoffs. Now, he's done it the last 2 games, and they're on the brink of winning their series, and that's why we're like, all right, fine, now do it again.
I like Stan Van Gundy's analysis during Freedom when Stugotz asked him about the best team he had seen this year. And what he said is, what I saw from the regular season is the Utah was the team that could most consistently play to its highest level, but the Clippers are the most talented team, and that in the playoffs what you see happening is more often than not, it's not about consistently playing to your highest level, but whose ceiling is higher. And he thought the Clipper ceiling was higher. I don't see how the Clipper ceiling can be higher, though, without Kawhi Leonard. I was still surprised, even with Utah being a little bit broken, I was surprised to see Paul George win a road playoff game like that.
Stan Van Gundy was on Freedom?
That's right.
And you remember?
Well, I know Amin doesn't.
I asked the question, I don't remember.
Amin doesn't certainly remember. He was drunk by 3 o'clock. The Stan Van Gundy thing yesterday, how surprising was it to you? Because I know he was unhappy. But I didn't think it was going to last that short, and I assumed that he was run out because the younger player didn't like. I just saw some quotes that were damning from Brandon Ingram and others that they didn't like how much he pressed, and it felt to me like that's exactly where and how game passes you by when you go to evolution of the three-pointer and young people can't deal with the hard-ass coach.
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of it puts a lot of pressure now on David Griffin, right? For making that move that quick. David Griffin's been the president of basketball up there for 2.5 years, and he's had 2 coaches already, right? He had Alvin Gentry for 1 year. He got in before the year started. He had Alvin Gentry for 1 season. He had Stan Van Gundy for 1 season. Usually in the lifespan of a front office guy, You have your coach. He's there 3-4 years. Things aren't working out. Coach is a fall guy. You get your second coach. He's there 3 or 4 years. Then he's out. He's the fall guy again. And then maybe on coach 3, now we're like, wait a second. He's burning through coaches here. Are we convinced about your ability to select the right coach, let alone whether the coach did a good job or not? But that gives you almost a decade of cover. Griff has burnt through that in 2.5 years. So now it's like there's a lot of pressure on him to get this next pick right, because at some point we're going to have to start asking, wait, do you know what you're looking for? In the case of Stan, I don't think the X's and O's part passed him by, Dan. I think Stan understood the game and was modern in his understanding of the game. But I do think the bedside manner thing is real. I was talking to a player maybe like 2 or 3 years ago that played for us in Phoenix. He's an old vet, and he was telling me, you could never work again in this environment. I was like, what do you mean? He said, no, you're too much of an asshole, pretty much. If you were here, everyone would hate you. And all these players would just go into a shell because you tell them the way it is, and that's not how we can communicate anymore. The communication style has to change. And, that's when I was like, okay, maybe I'll never come back then. But the reality is, for the Stan Van Gundy's, for Jeff, who we keep hearing about a job maybe coming up and all that, for everyone who's been out for a couple of years, things are changing so much more rapidly that to go back to the way it was is impossible.
What did it land on?
What were the other topics again? I can't remember.
No, what did it land on? What do you mean? What were the other topics?
I can't. My glasses.
They're fogging up.
We're asking you what it landed on. What do you mean? What were the other topics? Just what did it land on?
Coaches getting fired?
I think it landed on Obama. I didn't even know that was on there.
Wow. Who put that on there?
I didn't know that was even on there. Who did put that on there?
I don't know, but I request the second spin, please.
All right, spin it again. Oh, it landed.
Sixers.
Cinephobe.
Oh, no, that's cinephile, actually. I think that's what that landed on.
Oh, by the way, I have a bone to pick with you, Mr. Cody. You out here, you want to talk trash and talk tough with your fancy podcast where we talk to the newsmakers. Nobody wants to listen to newsmakers. You know what people want to listen to? Jokes. Jokes about bad movies. Or not bad movies, but movies that are poorly rated on Rotten Tomatoes and perhaps maybe didn't get a fair shake. Cinephobe is what the people want, sir.
Ascertain.
Thank you. Are we spelling that in honor of Amin? ASS at the start with ascertain. See you later, Amin.
Now, Dan Le Batard, I'd say ascertain should be a T-shirt that you can find on the World of Suey website. Now, Chris Cody doesn't want that. Chris Cody wants some other highfalutin word on his shirt.
See you later, Amin. Thank you. Do you have anything for us before you leave on Jokic's crazy-ass rabid brothers? Because those people are terrifying. And Haberstroh told us the story that Jokic himself is only afraid of his brothers and that they raised him throwing knives at him.
Well, let me just tell you, Tom Haberstroh right now has been missing for the last 18 hours. So,
oh boy!
Look, I learned from Bomani about Marvin Harrison.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Be careful, Amin. We care about you.
Okay, thank you, Amin. Well, I'm going to give you some weird breaking news in that I got a hotel report from the Delano of one of those Jokic brothers just destroying a hotel room and being banned from the premises like a year ago.
Wow.
Because it's one of those guys, if you didn't see the video of this, Juju sent it out and it went viral because those guys look rabid. And you have to be. Put it on the poll, Guillermo. Are you a crazy person if you wear a camo shirt under a basketball jersey?
They probably saw the towel policy.
That's got to be 100%.
But these people looked rabid. These people, we've told you before about just be careful in general with the war-torn country stuff. For example, none of you want any part of a Bogdanovich. None of you.
None.
Just be very careful.
I'm good.
With all of that. Put that on the poll, Guillermo, at Le Batard Show. Do any of you, really, put it this way, really think about this for a second. Do any of you actually want a part of a Bogdanovich?
It's funny how that's turned because it used to be when like the European guys entered the draft, they were the soft ones.
Garnett would pick on them.
Right.
Yes.
But now we kind of know, hang on a second, you don't mess with guys that have been in wars.
You don't even want any part of their brothers. Never mind.
No. Right. Oh, for sure.
Jokic himself is a loaf of bread. His brothers are nuts, and they looked rabid. One of them looked absolutely rabid. Did you see this video that people got scared for the same reason? Because they are drooling, frothing, 6'9" people that look like they're just made of granite, of bone cartilage. And if you hit them, nothing will happen other than you will harm yourself.
You'll hurt your fist.
I just saw a lot of people just recoil with some fear of, look, that feels all foreign. It feels like something that you see as a bodyguard in the movie Hostel outside of a place where they torture human beings. You just don't want anything to do with Jokic's brothers. I feel like we all had the same sort of visceral recoil of those people have lived more than I have. Those people have more scars than I do. Those people would disembowel me with like tools in their glove compartment.
The story from Haberstroh is that they were like playfully throwing knives at each other, right? I mean, that's
fun and games in the Jokic household.
Boys being boys.
We're in agreement, correct? Everyone had the same reaction to this. I think, Billy, I thought of you the other day because I think
Thanks.
this is Vin Diesel being quoted as saying of the next Fast and the Furious movie, quote, "I will say that nothing is off the table," end quote. I love that. I love that. What do you think he means by that?
Dan, nothing's off the table in F9. We all know that. I mean, they're going to space. We know that. Have you seen the reports about the Jurassic World crossover that could happen?
Yep.
Nothing's off the table, Dan. Nothing's off the table.
It's not in this one, is it? It's not going to be a Jurassic World.
No, well, maybe. Who knows? Nothing's off the table.
I will say, quote, that nothing is off the table.
How big is the table, though?
Big enough so that nothing could be off of it.
You know what's around the table, Dan?
I do not.
Family.
They only go a quarter mile at a time around the table.
Just some Coronas and family. That's what this life's all about.
What are you excited about in this next one? What do you know that is on the table other than space?
I know that John Cena is Vin Diesel's brother, and I believe twin brother. That I'm not certain of, but they are brothers, and they're on opposite sides of whatever their disagreement is.
Not that it's particularly relevant, but do we know the plot for Fast 9? Do we know what they're doing? Do we know what's going on?
It's the same plot.
It's going to be fast. It's going to be furious.
Yeah.
It's going to
For
be
a
the ninth
ninth
one.
time.
Yeah.
Plot.
We have a blurb here. I believe it says, Dom Toretto is living the quiet life off the grid with Letty and his son, but they know that danger is always lurking over the peaceful horizon. This time, that threat forces Dom to confront the sins of his past, again, to save those he loves most. His crew soon comes together to stop a world-shattering plot by the most skilled assassin and high-performance driver they've ever encountered, Dom's Forsaken brother.
Yes,
Whoa!
yes.
Love a Forsaken brother.
Yes, you love. Put it on the poll, Guillermo. Do you love a Forsaken brother? The plot is just cars, and it is. Is it the most successful movie franchise ever? I don't know that we have any other nines out there. Do we? Do we have nines? Nine films made in one franchise and no end in sight.
Do you count like the Marvel or like DC Comics cinematic universes, or is this like a separate thing because it's all the same person starring in every
the Bond
single
movies,
one?
I guess.
The Rocky Creed franchise, I believe, just did the 8th movie.
Did they get to 8 already? Okay.
2 Creeds and 6 Rockies.
What's the plot of the last one?
Creed just had a baby.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
Also, Dan, a sad update, a subdate, if you will. It's not no end in sight. Allegedly, they will end after 11.
Oh, thank you.
But that's the plan for now. That's the plan for now.
I love the idea of we'll end our movie franchise after our 11th edition.
Well, don't forget about the spin-offs Hobbs and Shaw, which I believe there's a Hobbs and Shaw 2 coming. So that could go on for who
Wasn't
knows
that
how
one
long.
bad, Billy? I saw like
no.
on a critical basis, it was not reviewed very well.
How dare you? No, sir. That was not a bad movie. In fact, and this is not a popular take, I think one of the best movies under the Fast umbrella.
Wow.
Hobbs and Shaw. Yeah. Cameos
is
aplenty
Tokyo Drift.
if you're a fan of cameos and big names.
Look at how pleased he is with himself.
So pleased.
And what are you pleased about? That you just got out there with the controversial take that Hobbs and Shaw...
No, I'm not pleased. I'm not pleased about that because that's not popular in the Fast universe to say that aloud. That's something that has me on the outs, along with the fact that I said that I had never gone on the Fast and Furious ride at Universal. That's something that, the gearheads did not like for me to admit aloud.
You're on the outs with the Fast and Furious community?
With some. But, this isn't a time, again, guys, we're about a week out from it coming here to the States. This is a time about family. So we have to put our differences aside, much like the Toretto brothers, and we're going to have to get together at the end. Get through this together. Family.
So would you like to hear the guest issue report from the Delano Hotel?
Ooh, please.
Oh, please. Are you kidding me?
Guest was extremely intoxicated and damaged the room.
What do you imagine it takes to intoxicate a Jokic brother?
A lot, man.
A gas tanker of 151 proof. Guest was violent and out of control, endangering the other guests in the room as well as the hotel. That means the actual structure. It's many stories high. Girlfriend of the guest was advised he cannot return. She may return to retrieve her items. Room is double locked and security must accompany her to the room. If guest returns to property, police must be called.
Wow.
And police will not want to come.
Just police?
Double locking.
Wow. What it takes to intoxicate a Jokic, bro. I mean, I can't even imagine.
What, a Jokic
It's just-
drunk?
Yeah.
It's the alcohol Stugotz drank in college, like the rubbing alcohol.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's an
Hydrogen
IV
peroxide,
drip of alcohol. God.
I hope
the person at that front desk has the worst job on the planet, right?
Front desk could
any
be
of the
Delano?
any of the
no,
people
just like
at the front
people at the
desks
front
on
desk
South
who has to
Beach.
deal with the intoxicated Jokic's.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
But I would say front desk in general at the Delano is a dangerous game.
I totally agree.
Yeah. The overnight shift there must be hard times.
Oh, boy.
The woman at the Fairwind just looked so beat down when I was checking in last week. She doesn't love her job.
Is there anything better than just like random morning sport? I love that just Ukraine and North Macedonia played a brilliant game of football.
Oh, no, this has been a great game, Woody. I've been
great
watching. There have been so many Ukrainian injuries, though. What is going on?
Yeah, and they're not like, I don't know if they're time. I mean, now they would appear to be time wasting, but yeah.
LeBron says it's because of the offseason situation.
Oh my God, this LeBron. We need to have a go at this LeBron. Oh my God.
Wow, what happened?
Yeah, he went on like this tweet thread
Right.
about how he told everyone that this season was going to go poorly with injuries.
Oh, really?
And Amin.
You need to read it. You need to read it, Stugotz.
The Stugotz,
Are you in or you out?
the
The
was so
Stugotz is
strong.
stronger than LeBron. It's stronger than everyone.
I mean,
You know?
hang on a second. I mean, I love you, and I love
Everybody needs
I love
to
that
hear
you're
this.
emerging from the
Everybody should
shadows.
hear
Okay, and I'm speaking on behalf of Tony here.
No, I'm here too.
Okay. When we're on YouTube, he has to create custom graphics for the number of people
Leave your
that are
cameras
in the
on.
Zoom. And so do not turn off your cameras if you intend on being on the YouTube stream. And it affects the symmetry of all the Zoom windows. So if you're
It does not affect it, Chris.
in.
It does
if
not
you're-
affect it. It fucks it.
Oh, okay, excuse me.
Oh, okay.
So
wow.
if you're in, you're in.
Jeez Louise.
If you're out, you're out.
Sorry, Billy.
So I mean, if you want to hang out for the rest of the show, you're more than welcome to, but you have to stay in your Zoom window.
Stop turning me
Or
on,
don't.
Tony.
Pick one.
No, I know what happened to Amin. He got the thank you Amin, like it's time to go, but he wasn't ready to go, so he just turned off his camera so he could still hang out a little bit.
Do you have anything else to do?
I wanted to just lurk in the background and listen to the show. You know?
I mean, you
I'll
can,
throw
just
that.
not with your
You
camera.
could. Yeah.
Show is live
But
on
with your
YouTube.
camera off.
I mean,
Now I have to keep my camera on the whole time, though.
Yeah, well, he was back. He just popped in. Like, he was gone.
He just pops in and out.
I liked it. I was surprised
First
every
time,
time.
Woody.
I was like,
Oh, exactly.
Stugotz, you really need to find what LeBron wrote because
Oh, no, I
it's so
will.
over the top.
I will.
Here's Stugotz. I'm sending it to the chat.
I need to.
It's
I mean, can you just disable your camera for a quick second? Just I want to see.
Wow.
Something. Oh
See
wow!
how
It
it goes.
fixes it instantly. Wow.
Real Chrissy Teigen over here with Amin, Tony.
I didn't say anything bad whatsoever.
What does that mean?
What does that mean, Billy? Let's put you on the spot for a second.
Because she's a bully, internet bully.
She's a major cyber bully,
so
one of the worst.
I mean,
but she wrote
out.
a Medium apology, so isn't that
please.
she's
I mean, if you can hear me, you can hang out.
Is that
it seemed real heartfelt
on Medium, or is it like a not quite a big apology, not quite a small apology?
A Medium.com apology. That's where
gotcha.
if your Notes app apology is too long, you publish your apology.
Ooh. Well, it's levels to these apologies, huh? It goes tweet, Notes app, Medium, and then what's the
YouTube video? I think would be the next step with crying. I think Today's Show would be one step above YouTube video.
That's after like the next two sponsors pull out. Then it's like, I'm really sorry.
There's like a Joe Rogan appearance non-apology somewhere in that hierarchy.
Oh Lord,
that's doubling down. That's when you double down.
Yeah.
You go to Joe Rogan.
Like Kevin Hart or whatever.
I mean,
yes.
Do you intend on staying in the Zoom for the next hour of the show and participating?
Do it. I dare you.
I mean, I'd hate to impose.
No.
For crying out loud, man.
I'm inviting you. It's not up to me, but I'll invite you.
It's not up to Billy.
All right, Dan is good with it. So if you want to do it, you're in.
Let's stay in.
Okay.
But
he's
all right,
back.
Okay.
I'm back, baby.
Please do not turn off your camera until the show is over.
Never.
Amin Elhassan is.
All right. Give me like 3 minutes to reorganize.
All right. We'll reconstruct our triple box and our quadruple box and our boxes.
Septuplet.
Oh, I love a septuplet.
I can.
Real burden you are.
Good septuplet.
I know. See how they did, Billy? It was like
your fault.
Welcome to the Big Suey, a podcast exclusive.
Risky move.
Just when you thought the show could not be more diluted.
Walk the plank.
Bam!
No more free Disney trips.
Now here's the marching band of nowhere.
Matey.
Fatface.
Dan's been stress eating.
And the habitual liar.
Stugotz can't be trusted.
The Big Suey.
Yo ho, a pirate radio life for me.
One of my favorite teams. I do believe it should get some 30 for 30 treatment because I've been saying for a long time that those Trailblazers were blazing a lot more than trails. Those were unapologetically black basketball teams, independent. They turned up the volume on their personalities and didn't care how you received it. They were really ahead of their times. And so Bonzi Wells and Rasheed Wallace have a new podcast. Let's Get Technical with Rasheed Wallace and Bonzi Wells. It's on the Ball is Life podcast network, and Bonzi's with us now. And one of the reasons that I wanted to have Rasheed on was to show people that he has more of a personality than Angry Guy because he got more technical fouls than anyone. And I wanted to cover with Bonzi some of the experience of being a member of those Trailblazers because that team should have won a championship. It felt like you guys were so close, Bonzi, and people think that it was character issues or whatever nonsense it was. It was a lot of things. I didn't feel it was that team wasn't uniquely together because it seemed like you guys were against the world in ways that were real, and before the race dynamics that have played out in America, you guys were telling everyone to f*** off early.
Well, definitely, and first of all, I appreciate you having me on, man, and my boy Sheed and giving us some love. But, and we should have won 2 or 3 championships, honestly. People forget about the 99 championship that we should have won and that lockout shortened season on top of the 2000 championship. But, you're right, man. I feel like we were ahead of our time, but it's just the difference between times is that the voices were different. We didn't have a voice back then. We didn't have a voice to really tell people who we are. And people took their information from the paper. All right, I'm gonna listen to the paper. They're gonna tell us these guys are bad boys. They're wild. They're crazy. They thugs. And that's how people perceived us. And that was the perception around the world for us. And honestly, man, we didn't really give a back then when we were playing because it's like, somebody got to be the bad boys. We're like the bad. We kind of positioned ourselves as like the bad boys in the late 80s and the 90s. Like we're going to be those guys, and we loved it, but we didn't really understand the ramification for it in terms of racially. The whole racially profiling the Jailblazer term, we didn't really understand how big that was until we got older and was like, whoa, that shit really wasn't cool.
Your name, right, is associated with sort of a time period, and it's more Jailblazers than Trailblazers. When I think of you, I think of a dude who was unapologetic and teams that were super badass. But I'm surprised to hear you say you didn't feel the pressure and the weight of that because it seemed from afar like it would be really unpleasant, no matter how strong you were of character.
Well, I was young. When you're young and dumb, what I'm saying, you don't really feel it. As I got older, I got a chance to really understand, what was going on. But when I was young, I was just in it. We was just hooping. We were winning 55 to 60 games a year. Everywhere we went, it was a buzz about us, and we loved the attention of it, but we didn't understand how bad the negative attention was. I didn't really understand the history of Portland, Oregon, the way they kind of do the media, the racial disparity throughout the years there. I didn't really understand that part of it because I'm from Indiana. So Indiana could be called somewhat of a racial state either. So I don't really, kind of get high or low when it comes to the racial people. I just kind of just stay neutral. So I didn't really get too caught up in it. But as time got to going on, people started showing, especially the media, got to showing us how they felt about us. And that ended up being the demise of the Blazers because of the media.
Was Portland the city and Portland the media embarrassed by you?
I think the media put the city in a position to be embarrassed because the media always wrote bad stuff about us. Like I said on our pod one day, I was like, like Rasheed Wallace can go out and have 35 points, have a great game, lead us, do everything right. But then they will always write an article about Rasheed played great, but don't forget, a year ago, he got caught in that yellow Hummer smoking weed. It was always like you could get a guy high and they always pulled us back down into the mud. And that's just what it was. It never gave the fans a chance to really just appreciate us because they always planted that negative seed in their head.
That team was high a lot, right? Another way you were ahead of the times, because it must be amazing to you to see all of these cathedrals fall now. Like, you guys were always baked, were you not?
Yeah, I mean, you got to understand, smoking weed is nothing. People, we don't even look at it as a drug. And it's crazy. I tell people, like, they vilified us as a team for smoking weed. And I used to try to tell the NBA, even back in the day, is that y'all vilifying marijuana, but y'all glorifying basically alcohol, because y'all telling us to don't do this, but go to the club and drink alcohol, which you're going to make some bad decisions. Crazy stuff happen when you should have us smoking some weed where we're chilling. All we want to do is be off our feet, play some cards, get something to eat and relax your mind. So I thought the NBA always had it twisted. And even with the Portland, I thought it was a double standard because, and there's no disrespect to Big Red, but Bill Walton was a known hippie. He did all the partying and stuff, and the city loved him. I mean, he was in some public venues. I think it was even at the championship party where he was saying something like he saw a zigzag sign in the crowd and he was so happy and let's burn one, and the crowd went crazy. But then when we get there, the only thing they can mark us up with is that, they smoke marijuana. And then they was just digging for anything else. And I was like, if that's the best y'all can do, we don't care, because marijuana is not a drug to us.
Meanwhile, you see what's happening with Tim Donaghy. You guys are getting killed for the marijuana. This is a team that blazes a lot more than trails. And you thought one of your games or series that it was rigged, right? That Donaghy was actually doing something that was screwing with the result, right?
Well, we definitely did. And it's funny, we had Donaghy on our pod and he admitted to a lot of stuff because, Rasheed was ahead of his time. Rasheed is just, he's the GOAT in terms of just being who he is and being a one-of-one and speaking his mind. And he was saying things like that back in the day, kind of planting seeds in our mind, like, just watch how the flow go about different situations, different games, different crews that come in, who we're playing. So I started kind of seeing the trends. And when you see guys like Donaghy who would, kind of put two fouls on me and Rasheed in the first quarter, change some stuff, might say little quirky things to us under his breath and then get a reaction on us to get us out of there. Little things like that we saw that, we couldn't really prove it. But it was just things, and if you ask guys who are in the league, they attest to things like that. And when we had him on the pod, he admitted to it. And it was just like, wow, that's crazy that sometimes you think the league has an agenda.
Stugotz here for our friends over at DraftKings. I love DraftKings. I spend all my time there, seriously. I have my mail sent there. I do. People say, hey, what's your address? My address is DraftKings.com. DraftKings Sportsbook is not only my favorite sportsbook, but also America's top-rated sportsbook. I love using DraftKings Sportsbook. It is easy to navigate, has plenty of instructions for new bettors, and nearly limitless ways to get in on all the action. My friends and family have been loving DraftKings Sportsbook, and I know you will too. Listen to this great offer. DraftKings Sportsbook is putting you courtside with a chance to turn $1 into $100 in site credits. That's right. Pick any basketball team that is still in contention. Bet $1, and if that team wins, you win $100 in site credits. How about that? DraftKings, man, they're always getting it done for our audience. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code Dan when you sign up to turn $1 into $100 in free credits. Bet on the basketball team of your choice to win their next game, and if they do, you will claim $100 in free credits. That's promo code Dan for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Wager paid out in site credits. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or, in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT.
Bleacher Report once called your fight with Chris Mills the 18th best fight in NBA history. Now, I would never have wanted to fight Bonzi Wells. That seems like a really bad idea for anyone who approaches it. What happened in that fight? What's the backstory?
You know, it's weird, you know what I'm saying? Because, you know, me and Chris Mills really had beef years after that. Like, I know I had beef with him, you know, that's when I was younger and stupid. But I didn't know him the moment before we got in the fight. Not nothing in the world. It was actually a game we playing in Golden State. He didn't play the whole game. And, you know, I was killing. I had like 30. So Rashid went up for a shot, game winner. I was just going for the offensive rebound just to try to, you know, maybe get a tip in if he missed. And we kind of got tangled up a little bit. And he kind of had me by my face, and he was just calling me a little young motherfucker, and you think you tough, and I'm over here looking at him like, you must not know me, man. Like, I don't know you either, but, you know, I'm about that life too, and I can fight. So as soon as I got loose, I kind of hit him in his mouth. And, you know, everything went wild, and, you know, it was like trying to get out of there was crazy. And then the crazy thing is, after the game, and, you know, I respect Chris Mills for this as a G, on some G stuff, him and his homies, like, we were trying to leave Oracle. I think it was Oracle Arena. We was trying to leave, and his homies, they pulled in front of the bus so we couldn't get out. So they pulled in front of the bus, and they jumped out that mug and lined up our bus like, we either going to shoot this thing out or get Bonzi out right now so we can handle this. And I respected that because that was some real OG stuff. So
Bonzi, are you telling me they were going to shoot up the team?
No. The vibe gave you that, the way they kind of just lined up next to the bus like, yo, we ready. So it was like, you know, it was like, oh, okay. So, you know, the security kind of deaded the situation. But I thought that for him, he showed me a lot of balls right there. I really respect him for that.
How is that only fight number 18?
Yes, that seems like
that should be way higher if it's a meetup at the bus.
Bonzi, who was the guy in your locker room that everybody else was afraid of?
Shoot, me? Now, you know, it wasn't that, because we had a lot of tough motherfuckers. We just had a bunch of dudes that mutually respected each other, that know, you know, if guys would go there, they would have to go there. So we had a lot of dudes that you ain't with, like, because, you know, they'd take it outside of basketball.
What can you tell us about Zach Randolph? Because I sort of had a predisposed answer to that question, not, you know, I guess forgetting who I was talking to, that Bonzi wasn't going to extend to any man. That guy was more feared than I was. But when I think of some, you know, tough guy in that sport that no one else wants to trifle with, I kind of start there or close to it.
Well, you know, Zach, I raised Zach. Zach from my hood. You know, me and Zach, we grew up together. So, you know, Zach, that's my younger man. So Zach's a real one. He grew up in it. He ain't playing with you, and he about that life. So, you know, we all from Indiana. So we're not playing with you. Indiana is a serious state when it comes to, you know what I'm saying, when it comes to basketball and not being no punk. So, you know, Zebo is a definite guy you better not with.
Just so that the audience knows on this, because I don't want to keep it here, but I have found from afar Bonzi Wells fascinating, and that team fascinating for a lot of different reasons. And I don't mean to just mine all the stuff about fights and stuff, because there is much more here with this human being. But you were all Dark Alley team. And so when I think of Zach Randolph, do you know the story of someone beaten with a pool cue? Were you around when any of that was happening? Or because this is part of how it is you guys had this reputation, some of it earned, much of it inflammatory and racially biased.
I mean, a lot of it is, man. But, you know, as you know, when guys legend, you know, you tell the story after year one is probably accurate. By the time you get to year 5, 10, 20, it's got embellished. So I think, you know, we love our legends. We love to hear some of these stories about, well, like we basically jaywalk. By the time the story get out, we was like jaywalk with the intent to kill. So we love it, man. And then, you know, but like I said, Zebo ain't nobody to play with. He's a great dude, great family man, great person. But, you know what I mean? Don't let him go there, because Bo will go into his Zebo mode.
I want to play for you some sound here of some people telling stories about Charles Oakley, because Charles Oakley will slap people and walk away, and they will take the indignity of the slap. So I want to talk to you about some of this stuff. But who was a guy, give me a guy that you played against who, I want to go through some of this stuff, whose physical strength might surprise us, because Bonzi Wells was banging up against him and was like, whoa, this guy's pretty strong. People might not know it.
Man, I'm going to tell you at the two-guard spot who I thought was very, very strong was Sprewell. Spree was probably one of the only guards, because, I used to bully the guards. I was a bully guard, you know what I mean? So all the guards, I looked at them like cake. No disrespect to them, but I just felt like I had a little bit more ass than them. I ain't going to say skill, I just said ass. So that was my thing. So when I was trying to bully Sprewell, I remember I was going into my back down mode, and Spree was just, and I'm like looking at this little skinny dude. And so Sprewell is my guy that I feel like I was very, 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 very strong. And he looked like he one of them guys about that life, as you saw when he choked his coach. That Sprewell ain't playing with you.
How about a guy who might surprise us because he went back and forth with no problem talking to Bonzi Wells, which I think people knew better than to do, but maybe some of them didn't.
It's crazy. I didn't do a lot of talking on the court. I told this story before. I had one of those fathers that raised me not to talk shit on the court. I had to be locked in. My dad was a factory worker, so he was a blue-collar guy, worked at General Motors 30 years. So he was like, listen, when you get between them lines, I want you locked in, because I'm a class clown in real life. I was voted class clown my senior year, so I played too much off the court. But on the court, my father always made me play serious, and he didn't want me talking. And even when I got into the NBA, he would call me from time to time like, yo, saw you bullshitting on the court. Lock that face down a little bit. So that's kind of was my thing. I never really talked shit.
How did you become a fighter?
A fighter? Well, my mother had 17 brothers and sisters, so I grew up in a huge family. So, I had a lot of uncles, cousins, and that's what it is. You got to fight for territory when you're in a big family, and I grew up in a small community too, that everybody was tight knit. It was my city where I'm from is only like 50, 60,000 people, and it's only maybe 8,000 to 10,000 blacks, and we live in all one city. All in one little section. So you got to learn how to fight. You got to be tough. And if you want to get on a basketball court in my neighborhood, you had to fight to get on it. So that's kind of where I got all my grit from in my game and everything. I never went to a basketball camp. I never did none of that stuff. I really played ball in my hood, and that's how I made it to the NBA.
How would you explain to people the degree of difficulty on you arriving where you did, given what you had to climb over?
Oh, man, it was the most difficult thing ever. Because it's tough. You have so many pitfalls. Organically within your situation, your family life, your structure, your community, and people, you have like a crabs in a barrel mentality in some of our neighborhoods where people don't want you to get out and they want to see you fail. And you got a lot to pray for you and love you, but you have some that don't. And, I was just so thankful that I was able to get out of all the kind of situations that I may or may not have been in and be able to become a scholarship award winner, to be able to go to college and then be able to go to the draft, because going to college was my MBA at first. I never thought about going to the NBA. I was just trying to go to college so my parents didn't have to pay for it. So I was just totally blessed with that. We call it a cherry on top, and that's going to the NBA.
Let's get technical with Rasheed Wallace and Bonzi Wells. Yeah. It is on the Ball is Life podcast network. I imagine if I had to describe it, right, honest and authentic is what we're going for there, right? That's the top of the chain on what you're doing.
Well, definitely. We've been basically just bringing in guys and just, just interviewing basically what you're doing. But it's therapeutic for us, man. Like, if you look back on somebody, you can't find much media interviews on me or Rasheed. Rasheed said his one-liners for the most part. But when I was able to get Rasheed to, say, hey, man, I'll do this, and I'm just start, just talking. And this became therapeutic for both of us. We talk off the camera all the time about how this has been great for our life right now. We're both in our mid-40s. We're on the other side of life. We try to mentor these kids, talk to these kids, and just, lead by example. And that's what it's all about for us, man. This pod is saving our life.
What are some of the things you'd go back and tell 25-year-old Bonzi?
Make sure you cultivate relationships. Make sure you cultivate them early as possible. I was just telling a story to some of my kids. Like, when I was first got into the NBA, I used to always rush home to kind of be with my friends and be in my hood, when I should have stayed back and asked, the great Paul Allen, could I do an internship with him and just learn about life and how this stuff goes, and just learn stuff that I didn't know, instead of going back home, just kind of revisiting all the stuff I already knew. I should have kept just striving for knowledge and just, just cultivating all the relationships that I met.
Why didn't you?
I didn't know it. I'm first generation anything. First time I ever left my home was when I went pro. So I didn't know anything. My mentors, you know, they only took me so far. So I was kind of learning things on the fly. So I'm the first generation, everything. So it's my obligation now to go back. And that's why I mentor the kids. I'm a volunteer high school coach. So I go back every day to mentor the kids and just try to give them a vision board and tell them things that their parents or family might not never be able to tell them, because I've seen some shit. You know what I mean? And basketball has showed me this world, and that's all I want to do is give back to these kids. So that's why we do a lot of stuff in terms of going around speaking. I be with Steven Jackson a lot, you know, go around and speaking to some of these kids and just talking to them, man, and just giving them, like I said, a vision board.
You didn't talk a lot. You got a Michael Jordan story for us? Do you have a story for us? Did you overlap with one of these guys where you've got, if you have to impress someone at a cocktail party, and I'm like, Bonzi Wells, tell your best Jordan story. Do you have a good one, or did you hear a good one from someone else?
I do have a good one. You know, I was blessed enough to play with the great Scottie Pippen my first couple of years. So, you know, Mike had retired when I came in 98, 99, the lockout season. So it was like I was in my third year, and this is when Jordan came back and he was playing with the Wizards. So, everybody liked to play poker. So I remember my wife flew in. We was in D.C. She had flew in because she wanted to see me play against Jordan. So it was like 2 a.m. and I get a call from Scotty, and he was like, "Hey, Bonz, poker game's going down now. You got to go." So, you know, my wife looked at me. She was like, "Hey, go, just go." So I remember we were staying at the Ritz-Carlton. I think the residential place where Jordan was staying at was like 4 or 5 blocks away. So I thought about getting a cab, but I was so excited, I jogged. I jogged all the way down, ran 5 blocks, and they was waiting on me. Security kind of set me up, and, you know, I got myself together. This is just real talk. I knocked on the door, bro, and Jordan answered the door, and he had a long cigar in his mouth, and he was like, "B-Dub," and he called me B-Dub, and it f***ed me up. I gave him a hug, and I smelled him, and I said, "Damn, this brother smell like a winner." Yes. and I literally got a smelling on Jordan. I was just like fanboying it. So I sat back and we played some poker, man, and I just watched him just talk, you know, just beat Jordan, man. I was so in awe, man. It was funny. Every time he looked up, I looked down. As soon as he looked down, I'm just staring at him, just like, just with the GOAT, man. He just showed me so much love, man. He gave me a pair of his shoes after the game, and I still got them. It's just, that's my GOAT story, man. I just smelling Michael Jordan. I was like, damn, he smelled like a winner.
I love that you also were all sweaty because you jogged over there. So he smells regal and wonderful. You smell like desperation and sweat. Definitely. What were the stakes in that game? Did the stakes get a little high for you?
They was way higher for me, but it you know what I love about Jordan? It was like it was a few of the older guys. You know, Scotty. I think Dale Davis was with us. I think Oak might have been there. So they got a rival they've been going on for years. I'm the new guy, so when I was in a pot with Jordan, he would let me win. But if them guys was in a pot, he would buy them out every time. Like, you know, he had so much money, he'd just buy them out.
Were there any future repercussions where he then torched you on the court because he didn't want you to think you were too friendly?
No, not at all. I got lucky. You know, this was pump fake Michael Jordan. This wasn't the black cat Michael Jordan that was, you know, doing this thing. This is pump fake. So, you know, I was a little younger, so I was lucky.
Bonzi, a pleasure talking to you. Let's get technical with Rasheed Wallace and Bonzi Wells on the Ball is Life podcast network. Let's do it again, sir. I really enjoyed that, and I know you got the stories to tell. I want all of them.
Yes, sir. Anytime, my brother. Blessings to you and the fam, bro.
Thank you.
Well, we left our homes up in Bristol Bay for the waters of Miami shore. With a hippo at the helm and our severance pay, we fly the pirate flag once more. Pirate radio with the shipping crew. We got wind in our sails and the sky is blue. There's a devil up our nose, so much work to do. For the pirate radio.
Guillermo, put it on the poll what you were talking about right before we went live. Key Lime KitKat, yes or no? Because Guillermo was swearing somehow by the Key Lime KitKat. You stumbled upon it where? We'll get to David Samson in a second, but how many details do you want to give people on? Were you hoarding them? You said it's limited edition, so you were telling people, hurry up and get as many as you can.
I haven't hoarded them yet, but I should think about it. So I was at like CVS, Walgreens, one of those, and I was going to pay, and I was like, man, I want a Kit Kat. And then I looked down, and I saw like just a special display. It said special edition key lime pie Kit Kat. And I said, you know what? I like a Kit Kat, and I like a key lime pie. But this may have gone too far. But it was like $1.50. So I said, you know what? Let me try this. So I got one of those. I got a regular Kit Kat just in case the key lime pie Kit Kat left a bad taste in my mouth. I got home. An impulse buy, Dan. Back in my days of retail, they used to have what they called impulse towers, where they had little trinkets. And the idea was to try to get someone to just grab a bunch of those things on the way out. and it worked with the key lime pie KitKat. So I get home, try the key lime pie KitKat. Incredible. Maybe better than the actual KitKat. Tasted exactly like a key lime pie.
That's shocking. David, your thoughts here on what it is. Taste unseen or taste untasted, you would say what to what it is he's alleging there? The key lime pie KitKat better than the original?
I would give anything to taste a key lime KitKat, but I can't taste or smell anything still. So it would basically be just a KitKat.
David, how long has it been since
like
you've been able to taste
months,
anything?
right? 6 months?
Yeah. So I've met with a bunch of doctors, and they've all said that if you still have no taste and smell after 12 months, it may be gone forever. So I got COVID on January 20th. So we're coming on getting close to 6 months, but I've got time. I do these exercises where I smell licorice or coffee or garlic or onion. And about 10 days ago, I had a little bit of garlic smell, and that made me happy, but I haven't been able to smell it since.
Are you a picky eater?
Well, now I'm not.
Well, that was what I was going to ask you. You could eat essentially anything now that you wouldn't have eaten before.
Yeah, it all tastes the same. So what they say is that your palate may actually change if you get your taste and smell back. So I have a hate food, which is olives, is my absolute hate food. I will not, if it touches anything, I can't eat it. And I'm going to try to eat olives. I actually did. I had a piece of vegetarian pizza because I still love the texture of pizza and candy, even though I can't taste it. And there was an olive on the pizza because I had to get it at the LA airport the other day, and I didn't taste it.
What taste do you miss the most?
I miss candy. I miss licorice.
Oh, yes. Red, I'm assuming, right?
No, black.
Oh, wow.
Really?
I'm an all black jelly bean. Good and Plenty is my favorite candy.
God. Oh, Jesus.
So the backstory of that is I used to be small when I was young. And so people in grade school would take stuff from me because there was nothing I could do about it. So what I always chose was to like things that no one would want to take. And no one liked black jelly beans or black licorice. So it became my favorite because I would always get it.
You are a monster. That's a funny backstory, or not. It's a bit heartbreaking. Actually, you've started off in a couple of heartbreaking fashions because how worried are you that this seems like a dramatic lifestyle change to lose your taste and just these scents forever?
A tiny monster.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people dealing with a lot worse things than I am. I am quite fortunate, so I don't look at it as anything other than it's just a change. It's changed how I react to food. And the interesting thing is I forget that I've lost it every day. I'm like Drew Barrymore in 50 First Dates. I wake up assuming I've got my taste and smell, and then I'll go to a meal and people will say, wow, this is so good. And I'll say, God, I got a bad batch, or the chef didn't make this dish right today because it doesn't taste good. And then I have the epiphany, oh my God, I can't taste it. Because what it means is everything tastes the same and it just tastes like nothing. So it's just plain.
Do you take advantage of this and eat extraordinarily healthy foods, like a way healthier diet than you used to?
No, I've always been pretty healthy, but I crave the texture. So I still crave the texture of candy and pizza and things like that. And I'm training for a bunch of marathons, so I'm eating whatever I want, whenever I want to. But no, my brain is starting to remember what tastes are. So I can taste, I had a Hershey's Kiss the other day, and I thought it was stale. Not hard, but just sort of tasteless. But then something kicked in when I sucked on the Hershey's Kiss, which is how I eat Hershey's Kisses. I don't bite them. I'll suck them down. And I think I had this sense of what chocolate is.
Does anything that you eat actually satisfy you if you can't taste it?
So my stomach gets full, obviously. So in that regard, I would say. But in terms of, oh, God, that's so good, or what a great restaurant, I shouldn't go to expensive restaurants because it's not worth it. But I still find myself doing it because the food is supposed to be good. So therefore, I think it's good. So in my mind, I say, oh, God, this restaurant is just not good anymore. So I've stopped actually going to nice restaurants because that is just a waste of money.
I can't imagine anything worse.
Yes, you can. Don't say that.
No, I mean, this is bad. Just inconveniences. Obviously, there are things worse in life, but just in terms of daily inconveniences, this seems terrible.
Again, I have a different outlook, Chris. I think that it is what it is. So I'm lucky. My lungs were never compromised. I'm doing great. I'm healthy. Otherwise, it's just it's annoying more than anything because
I know you
it makes it.
That you have to say all that stuff, and you're right, but it must just suck.
It totally sucks.
Guillermo, put it on the poll at Le Batard Show. Hershey's Kiss, bite it or let it melt down at Le Batard Show.
Way to press him, Chris. I mean, that was fantastic.
You really did. You got him to fold under the single swinging light bulb of interrogation. So what? You must have a couple of horror stories, though, about like drinking expired milk, or has it caused something terrible?
So I love where your head's at, because what's in my mind constantly is Minority Report, when Tom Cruise got his eyes taken out and he went into the fridge where he had to recover, and he took those moldy sandwiches. I don't know if you guys have seen Minority Report. So I think about that all the time. So I never used to look at anything. I would just smell it. Now I find myself throwing away anything that is a day past the expiration date, where normally I wouldn't have to do that, but I can't take the chance. And milk, I have actually stopped drinking all milk. I don't put it even in French toast, in my French toast mix anymore. I don't put it in cereal anymore, even though I normally eat cereal dry, because I'm just worried that even unexpired milk is going to be nasty, and there'd be no way I'd know.
I wanted to talk to you when I saw all of this happen in baseball, because it seems fascinating to me, David, that everyone's cheating, and it's rampant in a way that is so ingrained into the fabric of what's happening now that I'm numb to it. It's one of these scandals that I'm like, I don't even understand how much of an advantage these guys have when they do this. So from your perspective, give us what you find to be most interesting about what's happening right now in baseball with all this spider tax stuff.
What's most interesting is that position players were okay with pitchers using foreign substances to get command, but they're not okay with pitchers using foreign substances to make them better. Do you know that now foreign substances have become performance-enhancing substances? They're PESs. It's the same thing as doing steroids for the position players or the pitchers. They're able to do things they weren't able to do before. I've spoken to players. I once spoke to Stanton about this. When he saw a ball do something that it had never done before, the way you hit in Major League Baseball is you only have a quarter of a second to know where to put the bat, where the ball is going to be. And you learn where the ball is going to be. You see the spin if you can, and you put your bat where the spin should be when the ball gets to where into the hitting zone. But when balls do something different than they've always done, that's when these strikeouts happen. And it's just difficult for hitters to hit, which is why averages are down. So position players finally said it's enough, and they're calling out pitchers. And that doesn't happen very often, because there's an understanding in baseball. Foreign substances, we're good with it. We're going to use rosin. We're going to use sunscreen. At Marlins Park, we had a vat of sunscreen, and we play with a roof. It's not to stop cancer. The sunscreen is used by players to make a mixture to use when they're pitching. I always loved when the sunscreen was out. I don't think you're understanding how funny that is, to have sunscreen in a place where there's no sun. But when you start using other things, and all of a sudden position players are thinking they can't make as much money as they used to because their numbers are so bad, then something happens. And baseball's just fumbled it. And it is such a nightmare right now. The memo they released is so bad. And the fact that they're making players stop cold turkey and giving players now a platform to say, I can't do it, I'm going to get hurt. And then they get hurt and they get to blame the commissioner for it. It's just a nightmare.
Is the reason that offense is the worst in that sport that it's been in more than half a century the fact that pitchers can use these substances?
It certainly is a contributing factor. Take a look at the way these balls move. There's all of these things on Twitter, these sites and these Twitter people who have tons of followers showing ball movement. And everyone just says, wow, look at that ball move. That doesn't happen by accident. It's not natural. It's not normal. That's why pitchers are getting hurt, because they're throwing 98, 99 all the time. That's not normal. The movement of the ball is not normal, and that's got to be done with something. And now we know what it is. Of course, we always knew, though.
What do you make of Tyler Glasnow saying the reason I got hurt is because they took away these substances from me?
I think that is the union getting ready for a collective bargaining negotiation. That's why Scott Boras made the statement he made. That's why Zach Gallen, who's a Scott Boras client, made the statement he made about Mike Hill. That's why Garrett Cole.
What is that statement? Can you just tell people, so that the people who do not know, because Michael Hill is a friend of yours, what happened there?
Michael Hill used to be the president of baseball operations for the Marlins and was let go by Jeter at the end of last season. He is now in charge of on-field operations at Major League Baseball. Zach Gallen is a pitcher who was traded to the Marlins by the Cardinals for Marcell Ozuna and then traded by the Marlins to the Diamondbacks for Jazz Chisholm. Zach Gallen's been hurt. He's now not hurt, and he decided to go public yesterday saying, in my last organization, we were told to use these foreign substances. Scott Boris's agent made a statement saying Mike Hill is a part of an organization like all organizations who tell their players to use foreign substances. And I know Mike Hill, and I was in an organization. We don't say to a pitcher, use steroids, or a position player. We don't say use spider tack, but we're okay when you do it until it goes too far. It's the same way I was with steroids. I knew the players were using steroids. And listen, I want to win as many games as possible. We're going to educate you that it's not good for your body and that it's illegal and that you're going to get hurt and it could impact your career, it could impact your sex life. But if you want to do it and hit home runs, I'm all in. When it comes to foreign substances, it's not illegal. It doesn't hurt you physically, and it makes us a better team because you get to pitch better. I'm all in. But to call out Michael Hill specifically the way that's been done is just inappropriate, and it's done not because of Mike Hill. It's done because of the collective bargaining agreement that is up on December 1st. And there's going to be a fight like you can't believe. There's going to be a work stoppage, and it's going to be totally super depressing for the fans, all because of the ego of certain agents and the ego of certain owners.
You are positive there is going to be a work stoppage, that before the end of the year, there's going to be a work stoppage.
It's not like the sunrise, Dan. What do you mean I'm positive? No, I'm not positive.
I just haven't heard this. You said it flatly. You said it absolutely, and I have not heard that a work stoppage is coming nearly for sure. That I know the collective bargaining agreement is a problem. I'm guessing that the reason the penalties aren't stiffer for this stuff is solely because of the collective bargaining agreement, correct? Baseball can't actually come down on these guys.
Yeah, there's going to be part of the new collective bargaining agreement will actually be a rule about what substances can be used, and they're going to teach the umpires. I think the umpires will end up checking the players before the games to say, yep, that substance is good. Yep, that substance is good. Nope, get that out of your glove. And I think that is truly going to happen. And I do think there's going to be a work stoppage because the rancor that exists between players and management right now, and I've seen bad over 18 years. I mean, distrust and anger and vile bile, but it's worse now than ever. So I do believe there will be some sort of work stoppage, but I don't believe that we'll miss any games in 2022. I think that the off season will be screwed up, but the season will be okay.
The reason I asked that question that way, I know when you get it wrong, people come after you, like with the Major League Baseball All-Star Game being moved to Denver. You didn't think that logistically that could happen. But generally speaking, when you say something's going to happen around here, like, for example, Theo Epstein trying to create a path to get to commissioner of baseball, that stuff happened. So you are saying that there is a great likelihood that we'll get this season. It's not going to happen before this season, but when they go into the off season, we're going to not start baseball on time, and it's going to be a messy one. That's going to be a long time where a work stoppage is in play because of you've been at this for a long time, David. For you to say it's worse than it's ever been when you've lived through work stoppages.
So I actually have not lived through work stoppage. The last one was in 1994, and I got into the game in 1999. And that's something that Bud Selig was super proud of, as well as the union back in the day of Gene Orza and Don Fear. It was trouble and combative, but they always found a way to get an agreement done. The biggest problem that happened in baseball is when Tony Clark took over the union, and Tony Clark is a former player, and Tony Clark wanted all these things that were player comfort things in the last collective bargaining agreement. He wanted chefs. He wanted better planes. He wanted better food. He wanted better off days. He wanted different start times. All of it was crap when we were voting for the CBA. We were so happy that the players were focused on such meaningless stuff that they forgot about all the economic stuff. And that's all we cared about. And now what'll be interesting is they brought in an absolute killer into the union, including Boris and all the executive council are Boris clients. And now they realize they don't want to get taken advantage of. But the owners don't want to give in. They love what's been happening, and they lost a ton of money in COVID, so they're not going to give up any economic advantages, and that's why there's going to be a work stoppage.
And you foresee what happening, the end result of this scandal and what will happen next year when it comes to what gets negotiated. What do you think is going to happen here?
It will not be a blanket no substances except rosin, which is what is now what they're doing. The cold turkey that everyone's talking about. They're going to have to allow some sort of gripping agent to be used other than rosin by players. And they're just going to make it a different rule. So it's not a violation of the rule. What the players did wrong here is they went too far. They're like children where you gave them an inch and they took a foot. It was okay to use the sunscreen and the rosin and the pine tar, but then technology got better. Then they realized they could use more stuff that would make their pitches even nastier. And they weren't quiet about it. But then their performance got so good, the offense got so bad that the parents, meaning MLB and the commissioner and the owners, said, you know what? Enough. And that's what happened with the substances. But I think there'll be a rule that's more in the middle of cold turkey versus spider tack. It's going to be back in the middle.
Stugotz here for our friends over at DraftKings. I love DraftKings. I spend all my time there, seriously. I have my mail sent there. I do. People say, hey, what's your address? My address is DraftKings.com. DraftKings Sportsbook is not only my favorite sportsbook, but also America's top-rated sportsbook. I love using DraftKings Sportsbook. It is easy to navigate, has plenty of instructions for new bettors, and nearly limitless ways to get in on all the action. My friends and family have been loving DraftKings Sportsbook, and I know you will too. Listen to this great offer. DraftKings Sportsbook is putting you courtside with a chance to turn $1 into $100 in site credits. That's right. Pick any basketball team that is still in contention. Bet $1, and if that team wins, you win $100 in site credits. How about that? DraftKings, man, they're always getting it done for our audience. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code Dan when you sign up to turn $1 into $100 in free credits. Bet on the basketball team of your choice to win their next game, and if they do, you will claim $100 in free credits. That's promo code Dan for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Wager paid out in site credits. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or, in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT.
David, I wanted to ask you further about the Zach Gallen comments and Scott Boras having a go at Michael Hill. How much of that is kind of a personal vendetta with Michael Hill, or was it more a signal towards the fact that he works for Major League Baseball and there is that potential work stoppage coming?
I think it's 30-70. He's not a big fan of Mike Hill. He's not a big fan of me because we would get in the way of him dealing with Jeffrey, and Scott Boras will only deal with owners. He doesn't like it when presidents or GMs get involved because owners, he can tap their emotion. He can say to Mike Ilitch, hey, you want to get a championship before you die, don't you? He can say to Jeffrey Lurie, you want to get a second championship, don't you? Here's how to do it. He can say to Ted Lerner, you want to get one, right? Well, sign my guys. But presidents and GMs don't fall for that emotion. We don't care. So Boras doesn't want to talk to us.
Does any of this ever stick to Manfred, or is he just protected by the owners?
All that Manfred cares about, just so you guys are very clear, because there's a great misunderstanding what the role of the commissioner is in all sports. Rob Manfred cares about 23 owners.
So you say 23 because specifically the majority. You're just saying, or the things to get votes ratified because you only need 23.
You need 23 owners to give you an extension on your contract. You need 23 owners to get a new collective bargaining agreement. You need 23 owners to get things done, and that's what he's focused on. So when Rob Manfred does something, he's not flying by the seat of his pants. That's not what he's like. He's extremely calculating. He's extremely Machiavellian. He understands what his role is, and he understands self-interest, self-preservation. It's not a matter of loving the game or not loving the game. People say he's not a fan. Who cares? We don't hire a commissioner to be the fan. We'll hire Marlins man if we want a fan to be the commissioner. We want someone who's going to represent the interests of the owners and grow the game with money. That's what the commissioner's job is.
David, I would so fall for Scott Boras coming to me and saying, hey, sign my guy. You want to win a world championship before you die? Sign my guy. I would sign every guy. I mean, that is crazy.
Well, but do you write the checks?
No, he's great at writing other people's checks and stealing other people's checks. Yes, it's not when
Dan will sign them.
It's not when it's his money.
Do you know how quickly you'd blow through $50 million if you were in charge, Stu? Do you have any idea?
I do, actually.
Is Manfred good? Has Manfred been good?
He's gotten a rough deal, right? I mean, you can't be good during COVID. It's a no-win situation trying to deal with COVID. You could argue that Silver did it better, although I'm not sure he did. You could argue Goodell is better, but I'm not sure he is. But what Manfred is he's a businessman. He's a labor attorney. He is someone who is extremely smart and doesn't fall for things that other people may fall for. And that's frustrating to the union. It's frustrating to Scott Boras for sure. But Manfred doesn't care about any of that. So what's interesting is that Mike Hill released a statement, which was written by the PR people for Major League Baseball, of course, not by Mike, because that's how it works in baseball. And he responded to Zach Gallen's statements. And that's interesting. I talked about it on today's Nothing Personal because that does not happen often, because what we're taught in baseball is you ignore Boras. Don't mention his name. Don't talk about anything he's talking about. Don't give him the platform or the power. But MLB had to respond to what Boras said.
Why?
Because they're losing the PR battle right now and losing it badly. And that is something they don't want. They still believe going into collective bargaining that having the people's side and having fans be on owners' side matters. I always spoke to the commissioner and to all the executives saying, who cares what the fans think? Our job is to get the best deal we can. We don't need the PR. We don't need to attract the attention of anybody with what we're doing. Just negotiate the best deal we can for ourselves, and then people forget about it because then you're playing games.
Do you think Michael Hill responded to kind of save the look of MLB or to save himself? Because last night when that stuff was coming out, I felt like Michael Hill's going to be the fall guy for this, because the way the Astros thing played out, they looked for a fall guy. It wasn't going to be the players, so they punished management. So it felt like that's kind of where this was going until he responded publicly.
Yeah, Mike Hill is paid by Rob Manfred, and Rob Manfred knows very well that Mike Hill had nothing to do with it. Mike Hill is just the name on the memo. Mike Hill is the one who speaks to the umpires and speaks to the managers and speaks to the players about stuff that's going on field. It's not that Mike Hill would ever be that kind of fall guy. And frankly, Theo is the one who's brought in to do all these things at baseball and change the game and make the bases bigger and all the pitch clocks and all the stuff that Theo's trying to do. So I was surprised that Theo did not speak up at all and that MLB did not have him speak up, but they're protecting him for whatever reason.
David, I'm surprised to hear you say that your feeling was that the PR doesn't matter. Do you not think that the overall decline in interest in baseball can be associated, at least in part, to decisions like these or public missteps like these, where there becomes less of an attachment to the institution of baseball, however nebulous that might be?
Yeah, I was actually talking about the PR surrounding collective bargaining. Remember during COVID when there was the fighting going on between the commissioner and all of the players, and the commissioner said, we may have to cancel the season, and he got absolutely torched, including on this show? He was trying to get people on his side, and that was the mistake. When I say that baseball doesn't care about PR, it's in terms of an agreement and in terms of getting the provisions they want. They care way too much about PR because they're jealous of the other leagues who get better PR. And so sometimes they do things solely for PR. And when you do that, that doesn't work either. It has to be organic.
One of the things happening in the NCAA, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Arizona State now and Herm Edwards being investigated for doing all sorts of things in recruiting and COVID illegal things. And I just feel like there's a general numbness where we assume everyone's cheating. In empirical terms, David, outside of the game getting slower, which I think is what hurts baseball the most in a fractured attention span, changed society, I don't think there's any actual damage to this. I think the integrity of the sport has been so befouled and the numbers have been so distorted and the way it's played has changed so much that I actually don't think there's any real consequences to the cheating other than nobody hits a baseball for 3 innings and you're going to a park to watch 3 innings of strikeouts.
Were there consequences to the steroid era? from your standpoint?
I think it was great for baseball. The steroid era was great. It was medicine for baseball. Brought them back after a work stoppage. This, I think, is a net nothing. I think it's a net nothing. You don't lose fans because pitchers are cheating. Steroids brought fans out to the ballpark.
So you have to put that in perspective. So from baseball's standpoint, if steroids worked, what about steroids worked? Balls were going into McCovey's Cove, right? McCovey's Cove. Say that 5 times quick, Stu.
No, thanks.
So, yep. So that is what happens with steroids. That's why it was so good. It's funny. There was that whole, do you remember, it's not even good to say, I don't even know if we can say it live, chicks dig the long ball. Remember that whole commercial? That was a thing back then, and I'm sorry if that's offensive, but that was back then. I don't think they would use that now. Nobody says, hey, chicks dig the no-hitter, right? Chicks dig the strikeouts.
Right? No.
They love the walks. Ooh, give me more walks. So baseball's trying to say, hey, we've gone too far the other way, and so now they're trying to bring it back. It would be funny to me if part of the collective bargaining agreement allowed for players to get back on performance-enhancing drugs who are the hitters. That would be one way to combat this.
Well, here's a funny question, David. If somehow the use of substances increased offense in that sport, would anybody in charge have a problem with it?
Nope.
I love it.
But these substances decreased offense because only the pitchers were using it and the balls were moving in ways that the hitters couldn't hit it. Steroids, pitchers and hitters were using steroids. So while it was cheating, it was more of an even playing field.
No, but actually, pitchers were using steroids trying to keep up, like Roger, let's say. But at the end of the day, steroids are much better for hitters. Steroids by pitchers were really used, like what Andy Pettitte said, used to try to recover from injury faster to get back on the field, because that's one of the things that certain steroids can do. But the majority of the people using them were the offensive players, were the hitters, and that wasn't used to cover injury or to replace greenies. It was used to actually give you the ability to do better than you could do otherwise.
Ryan Spader, a baseball analyst, wrote on Twitter the other day, I've had enough. I think I'm coming out with everything tomorrow, going to sleep on it. And then he came out with everything that he had. Everything I'm about to say was verified by more than one player. I do not mean to burn anyone, and I love baseball. I've just had enough of this bullshit. The Royals were the first team with a full analytics and video department close to their dugout, doing so in 2015, their World Series championship year. How they used it, I do not know. The Yankees had cameras in left, center, and right, all pointing at the pitcher's glove rather than the catcher to pick up his grip. And then you see that Aaron Judge's home and road splits are ridiculous in terms of when he was at home, he mashed the ball with help, and when he wasn't, he didn't. The Dodgers had an employee who was caught setting up cameras at Minute Maid Park wearing an MLB polo shirt when he should have been wearing a Dodgers polo during the 2017 World Series. This one hurts to say. My favorite player ever, Chase Utley, was the biggest cheater of all time. As insane as it sounds, I've heard this from multiple players. Adrian Beltre had a buddy with binoculars in dead center who would wave a undershirt if he was getting something off speed in 2017. And again, his home road splits are ridiculous as well. How much is real here, David?
What's real is that you just said undershirt, and that's not what the quote was. That made me smile. And it's absolutely guaranteed that this is going on with players and with teams. I was a part of it. We're looking for and I said this on the show during COVID when it was just me and Mikey. I said, hey, we of course were trying to steal signs at all times. There were people who were assigned to do nothing but steal the signs and figure out the signs, both from the catcher and even from the third base coach of the other team. That was their job because we weren't playing the bench anyway. And we had cameras, we had executives, we had everyone knew. The GM, the manager, everyone. I don't know that I even discussed it with Jeffrey because why would I bother? So some owners could claim they don't know, but everyone else does. And to say that Chase Utley, I just don't like platitudes like that, like something so binary. He's the greatest, the biggest cheater of all time. Maybe only in the specter of cheaters you spoke to or who you know, but I don't want to put that on Chase Utley because you better come out with something better than Chase Utley's the biggest cheater of all time. You better have proof that he did something above and beyond what everybody else was doing, and I'm not sure he has that or he would have come out with it.
Wait, so David, it just appears to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, the Astros were just better at this than everyone else.
That's not appear. We've talked about that.
Yeah.
You're 100% right. They were simply better at it. And we were jealous of them. I remember so well talking about the fact that we were not able to do what other teams were doing, not just by developing players and drafting players, and we got caught with bad signings and bad trades. We couldn't cheat as well as the other teams. And I would sit with the other executives and say, what's wrong with us? Even if we can't figure out how to develop a good player or scout a good player, can't we at least cheat as well as the other teams?
So now, like, in the role of pundit, do you, like, castigate teams that are cheating? And why did you not feel when you were in baseball that there was some, I guess, purity to it and that you didn't want to cheat? Like, why did you feel that it was okay to cheat when you were in it?
What are we, in a convent? What are you talking about? Wait, you think I had like a moral dilemma in my brain? Oh my God, I can't do that. That would be terrible to try to steal someone's signs. I'm not exactly stealing their pension. I literally don't even understand what you're talking about.
Okay, but David,
I love the idea that your question is, so tell me about what was your morality? And he's like, what are you talking about? Morality? I'm trying to win. I'm not trying to help people in a nursing home.
But the only reason this is a news story is because people are presumably bent out of shape over the notion of cheating.
You're totally right. No, but he's a scoundrel. But he's telling you, because it's nothing personal, this ain't a .org. Like, everybody is trying to beat everybody for money, and that's business, and sports is business. And just because fans want to be Pollyanna about it, he's in the middle of it, and he's telling you, don't be silly. We were all trying to out-cheat the next guy if we could get away with it.
I couldn't possibly add anything to that.
So then I guess the question is, like, what's to stop you from did you attempt to break every rule in the rule book, essentially?
The rule book is this thick. What are you doing? No, I did not read the rule book rule by rule and have a committee saying, how can we break rule 749, part 4, sentence G? No. What I said is, what rules can we break that can help us win more games? Because everyone else is doing it, we might as well try to do it too.
The important ones, Chris, is what he's saying. Okay?
Right.
Yeah.
I think the audience is with you, by the way, Whittingham, but he's just cutting through it coldly and telling you that executives aren't doing that math. You either try and find winning in the margins, however it is you can, or you will lose to the people who find it. Like, it's not like who was viewed as a moral sort of executive who would never dabble in this sort of stuff? Was Dombrowski? Was Dombrowski out here?
Oh, yeah. Definitely. He would not do anything. No. Take the high road every time. Hold on, let me look through the Encyclopedia Britannica of former executives. Hold on, let me look.
Let us know when you get to one.
He definitely did. Oh no, he did too. Wait, no, nope, none of them. Zero.
Is the problem though that fans care about cheating, but only when the other teams are cheating, and no one really cares when their own team is cheating, as long as you win a World Series, right?
Those Astro fans are despondent, aren't they? They're crushed.
Like, if you told me the Cubs cheated in 2016, it's not going to make me, like, be sad that I celebrated them winning the World Series for the last 5 years.
The word cheat bothers me a little bit. So when you do something that you know is against the rules, but you also know that while it may be giving you an advantage, you still need to perform, right? So that's like when I do something. Is it cheating when I put lifts in my shoes?
Good point.
Yes.
Do you?
Because why? Tell me the impact that's having.
It's dishonest. You're being dishonest about what your height actually is.
I actually don't wear lifts because they're too uncomfortable for me. But believe me, I've thought about it. I used to love dressing up and going to costume parties, and I would always dress up like as Madonna or something. And I would wear heels because I loved the concept of actually being able to dance with a girl in middle school or high school where I could put my hands over the waist of the girl instead of on top because they were all so much taller than I. So it is something. But that's sort of cheating, right? You're doing it in a way to try to be better. And the concept, have you ever heard this, cheat to compete? We're not doing anything that is hurting people to the point where we are risking their lives. This is sports. This is competition on the field. I think people just need to take a bit of a breath here.
I don't want to be a broken record, but this is all good for baseball. Like we spent the last hour talking
You're right,
about it.
Chris,
Like,
yes.
David, is this bad that the baseball's in the news? Like, who's really not watching baseball? If you were watching baseball, you're still watching baseball.
There's not been one fan who went away because of the sign stealing, because of steroids, because of foreign substances. And the fact, I'd rather, you could talk about Shohei Ohtani, and you could talk about the San Francisco Giants and the White Sox, but guess what? Boring. Totally boring. You wouldn't spend 5 seconds on the San Francisco Giants on this show, would you?
Well, we did the other day just talking about Brandon Belt.
That's
and
right.
We were enjoying that.
Brandon Belt.
He's still there playing first base. I mean, it's crazy.
When players like Mike Fiers say that they feel guilt about the cheating because they cost other players their livelihoods potentially getting sent down, you just think that that's naive?
Whatever.
Oh,
Mike Fiers, right? Don't get me started on him. Please. I mean, he violated several rules. You don't snitch ever, right?
That's
just
the
not
rule you can't break.
That's the only rule that we adhere to is the don't snitch rule.
Is there another
we try
rule?
To cheat everywhere else. You've just laid bare that everyone in baseball is trying to cheat, but don't you dare snitch, you immoral shit.
Fire trace.
It's unbelievable. Like, that's where you apply the morality. Like,
That's the line. I will do anything I have to do, but I will never tell on someone else. Now, it doesn't mean that I will not draw to the attention of umpires during a game when I think the Frank Robinson or the Expos or another team is doing something to violate the rules, or when I see another player being so obvious. Do you remember when Michael Pineda had the foreign substance that was on his neck? I don't know if you guys remember this. I don't remember what year it was. It's certainly
like a different
GTS.
skin tone.
It was totally insane. When we see that, we're going to say something. And we're doing that because we want teams to try harder when they're cheating and not be obvious about it.
Okay, very good. So Andy Pettitte during a World Series game was tipping his pitches. He got bombed and the Yankees lost. What is the greatest example you have in your Marlins history of cheating successfully? Of when you guys did something and it's memorable to you because you were able, and catching a pitcher tipping pitches isn't actually cheating, but what's an example of a successful cheat by the Marlins while you were there?
Yeah, so when you say tipping pitches, that's something you also look for. And that is, again, there's no rule about any of that. That is something you do want to do. And Jose Fernandez used to tip pitches sometimes, and we would talk to him about it because it's like a tell in poker. You don't know you're doing it. That's what the definition of a tell is. And when you discover the tell, you don't say anything. But in baseball, it doesn't work that way because when a good pitcher gets rocked, you have to say either one, you're hurt, or two, you're tipping pitches. Because pitchers who get swings and misses, when they're not getting swings and misses, that means hitters know what's coming. So that was the first thing. The second thing is we would screw around with the roof, and we would screw around with the grass, and we would screw around with the sprinkler as a pro player. And what we did is that we would want to take the other visiting team out of its rhythm. Baseball is a very rhythmic sport. BP's at a certain time. The anthem's at a certain time. Pitchers warm up at a certain time. And we would do things that would interrupt the rhythm of visiting teams as much as we could.
Like, what would you be doing with the sprinklers and the grass?
So we would cut the grass in a certain way depending on what the opponent was. If it's an opponent with speed at the top of their lineup, we would cut the grass in a way that would make the grass longer so the ball would shorter so the ball would get to the fielder faster. We would do something in the outfield. Ichiro had specific ways that he liked the grass cut in the outfield, and we would cut it that way for him. But when we knew that we were playing against other teams and we would be told that those players liked the outfield a certain way, we'd cut the grass differently for them. When we knew the weather was going to be bad, sometimes we'd keep the roof open and make it really hot in the ballpark for visiting BP. Sometimes a pro player, we would make sure that the tarp was not on in proper time, so BP would get canceled more than it should have. So we would try, again, anything to disrupt rhythm.
When it worked, would you guys celebrate? How would you celebrate? Were there high fives, you and the grounds crew? How does this work, David?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, we wouldn't involve the grounds crew. We just tell them what to do. We're not saying to the ground, we're not implicating the grounds crew by saying, hey, we've got this team coming in, so do this. We just say, here's what we want, here's what we want. And they don't ask questions, and that's their job not to ask questions. They just do what we want. But no, you don't celebrate that because, by the way, when we're on the road, teams are doing that to us.
Right.
So it's totally normal.
Guillermo, put it on the poll. Is the grounds crew's job not to ask questions?
How much is that affected by football season in September, though?
Well, back at Pro Player, we used to love that when we had the dirt and we had the chalk lines. Sometimes we'd keep the chalk lines actually stronger than other times because it can be distracting to fielders. If you remember how Dolphin Stadium, when baseball would be playing, there'd be chalk lines. I used to love watching the Dolphins play on dirt between first and second base. It was part of the field. It used to make me laugh. But listen, the bottom line of this show is what people don't understand is that what you call cheating, what we're calling trying to gain every possible advantage to do the job that we're paid to do. It's that simple.
David Samson makes a rogue and renegade appearance today on the second edition of Cinephile. What do you have for us on that front, Chris Cody?
I just want to tease the episode with a 2.5-second clip. Everyone thinks Adnan Virk, nicest man in the world. Well, I unleashed David Samson on him, and it makes Adnan Virk say this.
Support Cinephile, Dave. You don't have to be a dick about it.
Oh, my God.
What?
Oh, my God.
Whoa.
Holy what is that? Adnan Virk, that's what happened?
Well,
Support
first of
Cinephile,
all,
Dave. You don't have to be a dick about it.
I got the Zoom information, and it was the Zoom room that I used to do the appearances here on the Local Hour. I didn't know that. I thought we were doing a taping of the Local Hour. That was the presentation. And then I get in the room, and Adnan's there. And Adnan's fine and everything, but he thinks he knows about movies. He's just gotten cocky since he joined your ship, right? He thinks he's this amazing guy. And basically, he doesn't know any more about movies than I do. He knows way less. He just likes to quote them because he does research, and I'm doing everything off the top of my head. I could do an entire show with IMDb tab open and impress you with my trivial knowledge of crap, but I don't do it that way. So there's Adnan, so I just decided to join the show because he was talking about movies, of course, that I had seen, but I found it to be less than interesting, especially when he called me a dick, and my name's not even Richard, and he doesn't know me to call me that. He doesn't deserve to be able to call me that. You got to meet me first and then call me that.
You don't have to be a dick about it.
Shocking. Cinephile.
Madman.
Rate, subscribe, and review. We'll get to David Sampson's movies in a second. Why are you shaking your head no, Billy? Just how generally lazy Stugotz is? Yeah. I appreciate the audience. The audience suggested to me, I had not seen this, a Netflix comedy special Bo Burnham did that was extraordinary during the pandemic. It's about mental illness. It's art. It's funny. I haven't seen anything like it before, so thank you to the audience members who recommended the Bo Burnham comedy special because it is comedy for our times in the last year. And David, what are you reviewing this week?
Well, can we talk about the Bo Burnham, or did you talk about it more?
No, I haven't talked about it, but I just thought it was a work of art because he took us in the pandemic into a closed space where he was wrestling with his mental illness. He used to have panic attacks when he'd get up on stage. He's one of the most famous YouTubers that there have been. He's a brilliant comedian and musician, and what he put together is a work of art, but it also seemed lonely and painful and depressing and hard.
So I had never heard of him because I am old and white. And it turns out to me, when I was told by someone from Nothing Personal, I get movie suggestions all the times by listeners who rate, review, and subscribe to Nothing Personal when you ask them to, that I thought he was the guy from Promising Young Woman. That's where I recognized him from. That's it. But I was told to watch this, so I did. And I didn't move the entire time. I was devastated watching it because he wasn't acting. And I didn't realize how brilliant he was. And the movie about Instagram is one of the song about white women and their Instagram was one of the funniest songs I've ever heard. The pain, and when he talked about suicide, when he talked about the dark loneliness, the depression, and he was the editor, the cameraman, the writer, the producer, the director, and the one-man show. He did everything because he was alone during the pandemic, and you could see the process unfolding. If you haven't seen it, I strongly suggest it. It's the second best. Derek Delgado is the best thing I've seen, sort of the one-man show type of thing since the pandemic started. But this one is a must-see. And it's not an easy watch, but you will laugh, but you'll also cry, and that makes it pretty compelling.
Well, you'll also be amazed by the range of talent and brilliance, because the song you mentioned, I didn't even think was the best one. The Welcome to the Internet song that he did, where it's 5 minutes of just straight brilliance that I don't know. I can't believe that guy, how long that had to take to make just those 5 minutes. Just smart writing, great performance, and funny camera work. I can't suggest it strongly enough.
And at the end, he actually show you, if you stay till the end of the credits, there's a payoff. He shows you a little bit about how he films some of the things, and you realize to get a shot that lasts 1 second in a montage, what he had to do to prepare that, being solo and being alone in this dark room, this white, it felt like a padded cell to me. And I assume that's what he was going for. There's no art on the wall, but it's a very artful presentation using computers and what they can do. This type of show could never have happened before computers and the internet and all of the things that are now that we're able to do. But it took something to make that show that I can't even. He never told us how long he took to film it, though.
But wait, going back for a second, what's wrong with having tiny pumpkins on my Instagram feed? I love tiny pumpkins, David. Why is that funny? A pumpkin? It's just a cute little pumpkin. Put a little crown on my dog, flower crown. What's wrong with that?
Do you actually think I'm going to take your bait? Like, do you actually think there is a chance that I'm going to engage with you on this subject?
What is the movie that you are reviewing this week, David Samson?
Reviewing Jessica. Okay, I want to get serious and talk about a documentary I watched called Roll With Me. Since we're talking about serious things, Roll With Me is a documentary from 2017 about a man in a wheelchair who was a drug addict, and he decided he was about to die. And instead of dying of a drug overdose, he decided to wheel across the country in a regular wheelchair, not a motorized wheelchair, not one of these built-up, Oscar Pistorius Blade Runner wheelchairs. I'm talking just a regular wheelchair where you have to use your gloves. And they documented it, and it's the story of the 7 people plus him who went across country, and he went from California to his home on Long Island. It is incredibly emotional. And what it shows is that the human spirit is something that has no end. If you put your mind to something, you can do it. And he saved his life. He saved other people's lives. If you are addicted to drugs or pills or heroin, there is a way out. Just like if you're having suicide thoughts, there's a way out. There's numbers to call. If you see Roll With Me, you'll be inspired and realize that you are so lazy, right, in your life. And I try to run. I already ran my workout this morning, but I felt so lazy watching Roll With Me, watching what he did. It's a great documentary. It's on Netflix. It's called Roll With Me.
Guillermo, put it on the poll, please. Should Oscar Pistorius's nickname have been Blade Leg? At Le Batard Show. Nothing Personal is the podcast. If you want sort of an undistilled, pure cut of how the business of sports works, Nothing Personal, you should go check it out, because you don't hear what you just heard there, which is a former major league executive just telling you, yep, we were all trying to cheat.
You never hear
morality be damned. David, thank you for being on with us. We appreciate it, sir.
Oh, Stugotz. Tua.
What?
That's it. He just did some good things at practice this morning.
Oh, he threw 5 interceptions on
we don't need to worry
Tuesday.
about that. He's gotten better.
I was going to say, reports are throwing a lot of interceptions. I was so happy
I was
about.
re-listening to Tuesday's pod as Tua threw 5 interceptions in a practice, and I was like, this isn't going well. But I mean, like, fair play. He said, like, I was just trying to be aggressive, and I kept on throwing them. But
you just threw a couple of TD darts at the end.
A couple of darts. Yep. You heard that?
Or the corners are looking good. Always a way to spin this.
Dolphins training camp, 0-sum game.
Weird shit's happening, man. Nadal's pulling out of Wimbledon, the Olympics,
Really?
the NBA's falling apart.